stepped in the game? At point blank range, who done stepped in the game? At point blank range, who done stepped in the game? Stepped in the game, stepped in the game.
Now, this Infernal Thought Process podcast, or ShadowCasts, if you will, is regarding a particular situation that is also popular opinion that's spread across multiple avenues, be it major gaming publications, various forums for said major gaming publications, word of mouth between friends, as well as social media, be it Twitter, Google+, Facebook, what have you. And they all seem to be coming to the same conclusion without there ever being a thought process to arrive to that conclusion. What I'm talking about today is probably going to throw a lot of people off because they assumed it is fact for quite a bit. So we'll go ahead and go into what's assumed. And what's assumed is that Nintendo platforms, in particular the Wii U, do not have a achievement system in place. So this all stems back to last generation, 7th generation, in which the PlayStation 3 played catch up and installed trophies retroactively after the Xbox 360 achievement system basically took off. So with the trophy system in place, it was kind of slow, it was kind of erratic, and things of that nature, and it finally started catching up. So with the arrival of the PS4, things are it's expected to be to work just as well as Xbox Live achievements work. So with that being said, there was a misconception even last generation that Wii, being a set of Nintendo hardware, did not have achievements at all, and that is certainly not true. There were various games that had achievements in them, Excite Truck being one of them, as well as first party games such as Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, which basically was the crux of the online component of that game, was to trade things that you found within there to receive the harder achievements in that game. Now fast forward to now in the 8th generation, where we have the Wii U competing with the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, and people are still assuming the same thing, that achievements just aren't there on Nintendo's platform. And yet again, that is woefully incorrect. But it isn't as segmented as it is this time. Nintendo has a global achievement system in place for every single game that is available for the Wii U. Now, it isn't set in stone the same way that the PlayStation brand, PlayStation Network, and Xbox Live is set up. Nintendo, as always, they do things their own way, and that doesn't mean in particular that just because it's being done their own way that it doesn't exist at all. Now, what I want to introduce a lot of people, a lot of non-Wii U players to, is this novel thing that every Wii U and now 3DS has, and it's called MiiVerse. MiiVerse is basically the Twitter and Facebook for that gaming console. Meanwhile, whereas the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 try to connect directly to Facebook and Twitter and Twitch and things like that, the Wii U has their own social network built in, where you can have friends, you can share accomplishments in games and things of that nature. You can even share video as of a recent update, and you can connect with friends, and you can even directly chat with any of them directly from MiiVerse. So one of the things, I guess the thing in particular that brings the achievement thing to life is what's called accomplishments. Now, accomplishments are achievements in games. The accomplishment system has been in place since Metroid Prime 3 on the Wii. And what accomplishments are the same thing as achievements. The difference being that you have both in-game accomplishments, you have spot pass accomplishments, which are basically challenges that were already created by the game creators, and if you beat those accomplishments, you get a stamp or a dedicated achievement in game, that other Wii U players can see directly on War War Plaza or the Wii Plaza as soon as you log in. So they'll see a snapshot of that in your time and things like that, and it'll offer them either to purchase the game on the eShop if it's available on the eShop, or if more information on that game if it's only available at retail on the eShop, so they can see more about it. Or if they have the game, it'll ask them to launch the game so they can go ahead and directly try to compete against whatever challenge that other person was able to meet. So in the case of achievements, they're broken down into two different types, right? So for accomplishments on the Wii U, they're built in two different ways, and they're basically split up into colors. So you have two things which are called green accomplishments, and you also have blue accomplishments. And blue accomplishments are subdivided down even further, but I'll get to that at a later time. So green accomplishments are basically achievements. So these are the built-in accomplishments that are in Wii U games. So when you do certain feats within games, these accomplishments pop up. So you have, these are mostly going to be first-party titles from the launch lineup of Nintendo Network and the Wii U when it first launched, because pretty much only Nintendo knew about how this network was going to pan out before the system launched. So after the system launched, quite a few third-party games started to gain these, but you'll get different achievements for different things you're doing in certain games. So examples of games with these accomplishments would be Wii Sports Club, Wii Fit U, New Super Mario Bros. U with Spot Pass in some places, NEX Remix with Spot Pass and stamps and things like that, and Batman Arkham Origins as one of the third-party games that has green built-in accomplishments. So you would go through a certain phase in the game and it would give you an accomplishment. It will already be built in, and it will post to MiiVerse with that accomplishment tag. Now, the very best part of MiiVerse, however, is the blue accomplishments. And the reason why I say this is the best part of the MiiVerse accomplishment system is it actually one-ups the built-in trophy and achievement system on the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4. Blue accomplishments are custom. That means that for any type of achievement that you felt that you've made in a game, you can post it as an achievement with the screenshot of you accomplishing such, and share it with all your friends. And they can grade it, or they can like your post based on what you did. So if I'm playing a New Super Mario Bros. Game, or if I'm playing a Splinter Cell game, and I'm playing a Splinter Cell game, and there's a built-in green achievement that said, hey, you have to sneak past this many guards without being seen, and that pops up. Okay, well, I got that achievement. That's the default green achievement that everybody gets. Well, what if I snuck past 30 guards and the game only said I had to sneak past 5? How do you differentiate between the two? Against everybody else on that same level, you're all the same. Well, on the Wii U, if you wanted to, if you snuck past 30 guards without doing anything or causing any scene whatsoever in Splinter Cell Blacklist, you could do so on that system. You could go ahead and you could pause the game, or you don't have to pause the game, just hit the home menu. It'll bring up MiiVerse, go to MiiVerse, and you can post a screenshot of what you did. You could list the accomplishment as, hey, I've done this. I've gotten past 30 guards without being seen or causing any type of trouble whatsoever. And you could post that to MiiVerse with your evidence of doing so from the screenshot of the game. And now, with future games such as like Mario Kart and things like that, you can also add YouTube video footage with that game, starting the whole YouTube connectivity built into the API of the game. So now you actually can do things a little bit better than even what the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One are doing. Now, from what I understand, those systems are also doing shared feeds and things like that to be able to show accomplishments that you've done, but they don't necessarily count as achievements or trophies. So right about now, this is the one advantage that Nintendo has over the others that nobody really knows about. Nobody really talks about this, but it's actually there. So the blue accomplishment can be broke down into 3 different types. So there's a question, accomplishment, or impression. So for a question, you can just put down an accomplishment as a question saying, hey, how many of you have done this? And you can put that question out, and people can respond to that question with their own achievement, saying, hey, yeah, I've done this. How many of you have beaten New Super Mario Bros. U in under 10 hours or something like that? And you post a screenshot of you beating the game in 9 hours and so many minutes or whatever, and people will respond to you on MiiVerse saying, hey, I've beaten it in this amount of time. I've beaten it in this amount of time. And they will basically reply to you with their achievements. And that's something that doesn't really happen on the Xbox Live or PlayStation 4 ecosystem. Even with the feeds and activity feeds and things like that they have on the newer system now, it's a lot. It's very cluttered, and it's not really organized in a fashion to where you could actually have a conversation back and forth with other people based on your accomplishments in games. So when accomplishment is basically what I already covered. You can tag your accomplishment as an accomplishment in game, and it'll be tagged blue with the accomplishment label. And basically you can just say, hey, I started Batman Arkham City, and I was able to run through this game for 6 hours without taking any damage. You could post evidence of that or what have you. Obviously, there, with it being a screenshot, there's not too much evidence you can really post of that unless you recorded all 6 hours. So things like that you can post on MiiVerse. Impressions you can post on MiiVerse, just saying different things that happen in a game. So you can say, hey, this happened in a game, and this is really cool to me, or I like the really great graphics on this part of the game. You take a snapshot of that, show it to other people with the impression tag, and people can search by impression and look at the impressions of all the other players that they're friended on MiiVerse, or just random people on MiiVerse to see impressions about a certain game. So those things are kind of, those are some of the ways to organize things in MiiVerse, similar to the way you would on a Twitter feed or Google Plus or something like that. So you never really forget anything that you posted in the past if you remember the hashtag. It works the same way on MiiVerse. In this way, you're able to view all the achievements that are important to you or that had a certain hashtag from the very beginning, and you can see all those to compare as they increased in time in history. So these accomplishments work for any feat that you've done in a game that isn't a pre-coded achievement. So you can beat a really hard part of a game that doesn't complete a level or unlock modes or a great win in an online mode or anything like that. So these blue achievements are basically the crown jewel of why MiiVerse is a great place to be. And I mentioned that you can attach a snapshot or a YouTube video, and that's I think snapshots just got added to the last Xbox Live update, and they are part of the PlayStation 4 also, but they aren't organized in a way where you can just say, hey, all my friends see this. This is me. This is me. This is what I did in this game based on the trophy that I have or the achievement that I have. It's more like a message that anybody can see on their feed. And it isn't organized the way that it is on MiiVerse. So once again, Nintendo does something different, but there are advantages and disadvantages to it. In this case, it seems like there are a lot of advantages, particularly with the blue achievements. So that's actually something that's unknown, but it's actually a pretty good thing. So for those Wii U owners out there that have never really gotten into this, because there are quite a few of you out there that don't even know that this exists, you should try it and see how it is to you, because it could be of a great benefit to you. I mean, you can view every customer pre-coded achievement just by clicking on it in MiiVerse. You can compare it to everybody else that owns that game, or people that don't even have that game that may have posted a tag about it. You would see what their response was to it. And people can rate your accomplishments, which is, even if you go on Xbox Live and compare achievements to somebody else, blah, 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 you can't go to an individual achievement and say, wow, that's really hard. I want to give them an attaboy because they got that achievement. You can see whether the achievement is rare or not, but at the same point in time, you can't just say, hey, my buddy did a real good job getting this right here. I know it was a real hard time for me trying to do it, so boom, I really like that. That's not anything that you could really do right now. other than on MiiVerse. So that's one of the great things about it. Now, obviously, there are going to be some downsides to this, and they're all pretty much going to stem from MiiVerse as a whole, with it being kind of separate from the console and more like an online web presence more than anything else. So one of the things about it is it's different because Nintendo made it, so you can't directly compare all of your accomplishments with other MiiVerse accounts easily like you can on Xbox Live or PSN. You can just, on Xbox Live or PSN, you can just literally pull up a tab of all your achievements on one side and all their achievements on the other side, and then compare them. And on PSN, they compare ratios and percentages and things like that. And on Xbox One, they've kind of done the same thing as they have on PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4, where you can see the percentages of achievements done and compare those overall. Now on Wii U, you can't really do that unless you go and search for that specific tag and see if the user in question has those achievements. That's about the only way to really do it, or to go to that individual profile user and see their list of achievements, but you can't see it and yours concurrently at the same time. One of the other things is, so since this is supposed to be an integrated environment, being MiiVerse and whatnot, 3DS integration is limited. So since Street Pass was around a lot earlier on the 3DS end of things, MiiVerse wasn't really around until the Wii U launched, and 3DS had already been out for a year or so. So a lot of things are more Street Pass heavy than they are MiiVerse heavy, and so that means a lot of accomplishments and achievements, things like that, are missing from that system in a lot of the legacy games from when it first came out. I want to say the better part of the first 2 years of the system being around. So that's kind of a ding on that, but that's more on the 3DS side than the Wii U side. And obviously there's no arbitrary gamer score or trophy percentage to compare to other users. So it's just like a list of achievements that you've done in a certain game. This is another thing that I see as an advantage also, is that in a lot of the comments, any comment that's on MiiVerse, you can check to see if that person has actually played the game. There's a little checkbox with a little square on MiiVerse that shows that the person that's making this comment has actually played that game on their system. So Nintendo does a little hardware check, and they're able to determine whether or not a player has actually played the game in question on a game channel. So if you go to the Smash Brothers channel, obviously you won't see any checkboxes on there because that game hasn't even released yet. So everybody that's talking about it right now is playing it is talking in a standpoint of what I think should happen from the game, versus somebody that's actually played it and has experience. So it's more than likely that anybody that does show a check mark on there right now is probably a developer. So you're able to tell that, you know, this is a person that's actually touched the game right now because it hasn't released yet. And that's a way to, you know, kind of weed out the trolls and things like that. Not that it really happens that much on MiiVerse, but it does happen from time to time. So you can't sit here and worry about listening to somebody bad mouthing, let's say Super Mario 3D World. If you look to the on their posts and you see a squares in there, you know they're full of trash because they haven't even played the game yet. One of the advantages that, to my knowledge, is not really present on the PlayStation Network and the Xbox One on the feed part of it. Now, as far as, obviously, if you're looking at the trophies and things like that, you can clearly see that they either haven't played the game online or they haven't played the game at all on the PlayStation Network or Xbox One. Obviously, you know, it will require the network to be connected for that to happen. But even if you never really connected online per se in that game, all your offline achievements are thrown onto MiiVerse as soon as you connect. So if you played that game before, as soon as you connect to MiiVerse and you try to post about that game, it will automatically give you that check mark. So that's one of I guess an advantage in that situation, so you can tell who's who and who's not. You don't have to worry about fake gamers sitting here saying this game and that game, blah blah blah. You know immediately what they've played because it will show the check mark in that particular feed. One more downside that I failed to mention was that a lot of the launch games, obviously for Wii U, didn't have any pre-coded green achievements. And that's one of the things that I talked about earlier, where a lot of the developers didn't have any netcode from Nintendo. None of that stuff was really set in stone because Nintendo wasn't ready to talk about it yet until well after the system had launched and they showed off Nintendo TV and things like that. So once everything got off the ground, a lot of third parties were able to actually get in and go ahead and hard code the green accomplishments within the system. So that's kind of a quick warm up. Well, maybe more of a wrap up of things that people did not know was possible on Nintendo hardware, and specifically the Wii U. So if you have any questions or comments or anything like that, feel free to put them in the comment section below. And what I'll do is I'll try to answer any of your questions as they come across. As of this video, I'm actually looking at a comment right now that was released in January of 2014 asking why Nintendo doesn't have an achievement system. So obviously there's a lot of people out there that still thinks this actually is the case. So for those of you that are out there, you know that MiiVerse has had an accomplishment system since the launch of the system. I mean, go ahead and like this video, because I mean, you're on board with me and you already knew that this was here. And make sure you educate all your friends out there too, because misconceptions like this just don't need to happen. It's another part of the infernal thought process, and I really don't like that. But anyway, this has been ShadowCasts, and as I always say, do you play games to have fun or to impress other people?